biggest piece of advice I can give anybody that wants to be in a long-term relationship is communication. And I remember a guy told me this when I first got married. He said, man, the biggest piece of advice I can give you, bro, is communication. And you like, bro, that's easy communication. But sometimes it's not so easy, but bro, communicate. Like, you will be thinking one type of way, and it's not that type of way. Like, for instance, I remember it wasn't too long ago. I'm just using this as an example. My wife had told me, she had said, I don't like the way you say it. Something is, yeah, I had told she was getting on my kids about something. I said, hey, close that door. I don't want to hear all that. And what I was saying was, I didn't want to, she was getting on one of my daughters about something. And I told my other daughter, close the door. I don't want to hear all that. And what I meant by when I said I don't want to hear all that, I didn't want to hear the back and forth. I didn't want to hear my daughter trying to weasel her way out of it. And at the same time, I didn't want to hear my wife doing all that doggone holler. Close the door. So then she said, hey, I don't like the way you, I don't like the fact that you told such and such to close the door so you could tune me out because you didn't want to hear my mouth. And I said, okay, I understand. But she didn't hear me say, okay, I understand. Because she was in the midst of sewing clothes when she said it, and I was on the other side of the room, and I said, okay, I understand. That's what I said, okay, I understand. She didn't hear me say that. So later on, I'm like, man, what's wrong with you? Nothing. And when a woman say nothing, it's never nothing. So come to find out, she said, you ignored me. I said, I ain't ignore you. I said, okay, I understand. She said, oh, I didn't hear you. See, if you communicate, he wasn't ignoring me. I just didn't hear what he said. Yeah, that's basically, look, I hate living in the subdivision. Okay, I hate living in the subdivision because when people throw a doggone party, nobody have nowhere to flip a subdivision. But at the same time, I like a subdivision because when I was a single man, ain't nobody gonna break in my house because too many people. Yeah, too many people. Life's good in the neighborhood. So always communicate. That's be one of the biggest things you can do in a relationship is communication. And that was one of the hardest things I had to learn was to communicate with my doggone woman. Like, bro, just communicate. Just communicate. And me and my wife we were just having a talk about something that she misinterpreted me on. And I guess I misinterpreted her on it. But I know I ain't misinterpreted her. And long story short, she said, if you would just communicated that with me, you wouldn't have felt some type of way. So, communicate, people. Just communicate.